Hello, Happy New Year. It's January 3rd. So I'm going to show you every book I read in 2024. Uh the entire everything I read in 2024. I've got a stack of books here. Just hold on a second. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. So that's the stack of books. You can still see it on the side there. I'm going to show every book I read. I read 40 books all year, and I'm going to give a 1 minute or so. I'll just talk about 1 minute about each book, and say if it's good or not, if I recommend it, what's my favorite book of the year. Uh, I've there's some really good books that I read. So I will start. Whoa. I got to be careful because okay, okay. All right. This first one is The Man Behind the Curtain by E. Michael Jones, his expose on Michael Voris. It was originally 2 articles for Culture Wars. And the reason this was the first book I read in 2024, if you remember, I believe it was January 3rd of last year, I had a conversation with Mr. Mike Parrott, who's had some confrontations with Michael Voris. That video has over 10,000 views. So go read this. It exposes Michael Voris, and now Michael Voris is finished. It's sad what happened to that man. In 2013, I actually got to meet the guy. But yeah, sad what happened to the guy. But let's not dwell on that too much. So, second book. Hope. Hold on. Okay. I won't be doing this forever because it's getting shorter. Okay. On the Marks of the Church by Saint Robert Bellarmine. I've often said this is the perfect intro to Saint Robert Bellarmine. Amazing book. Saint Robert Bellarmine is the Protestant slayer. He slays Protestant theology like John Jones slays all his opponents in no in Ultimate Fighting. No, I have a policy that every 5th book I read is a novel, and I broke that once, and you'll see. But there's a lot of novels here, because every 5th book I read is a novel. So yeah, he does slay EO as well. It's directed at Protestants, but a lot of EO apologetics today is simply Protestant apologetics. So we will continue. All right, here's the Marks of the Church. If you want to get into the controversies with St. Robert Bellarmine, this is where to start. It's about $22 Canadian. I don't know what that 15 American. I don't know. You can get it on Amazon easily. Okay. Hold on. Wow. Okay. Here's a book. John Scalitzis, A Synopsis of Byzantine History from 811 to 1057. Here's a primary source about Byzantine history. You talk about slaying EO, Kevin. This is good for slaying EO. Just read Byzantine history. You realize how ridiculous the church has been. This is 500 pages of 11th century historian. I love my medieval historians, both East and West, and it's good. You learn a lot about Caesaropapism and a lot of the battles and just a lot of good stuff about the wars and the affairs of the Byzantine Empire in that time. It's a good continuation of St. Theophanes the Confessor, actually. All right, that was the 3rd book I read. Oh boy. Now, the books here are not all to do with religion. Some books are completely just, like history. I like to read history. This book is one of them. It's called Always with Honor. The Memoirs of General Wrangel. General Wrangel, or Wrangel in Russian, he was a Cossack, you can tell, but he's wearing traditional Cossack garb. and he was part of the white movement that fought against communism shortly after after the October Revolution of 1917. Um, um, so, and this is his memoir of. There are three main generals of the white movement: Wrangel, Denikin, and Kolchak. I think Kolchak was operating in the Far East, like the far east of Russia, uh, and he was operating in the South because he was a Cossack. He was where the Cossacks lived. The Cossacks really fought the communists. They made them earn their victory. Unfortunately, the white movement lost, and we had communism for a long time. But no, this is a good. It's recently back in print, written by Wrangel himself, and it's great book. If you like the history of Russia, this is a great book to read. Okay, that's enough of that. Okay, first novel. And you'll notice that most of my novels this year come from one series, and that is James Bond, Live and Let Die. This is the second Ian Fleming James Bond novel, and it's good. It's not as good as the first one. The first one was Casino Royale. And that one was good. That one I think is the second best. I've read 7. There are 12 novels and 2 collections of short stories, so 14 books. I've read half the books. I read it all. I pay cash for these books. I want to get every penny's worth. In this one, there's not, but like the book for Skylitas has a huge intro and all that stuff. I read it all. Exactly. They're so much better than the movies. Live and Let Die. This is a great follow-up. It's not as good as the first one, Casino Royale. I read Casino Royale. I think it was the last book I read in 2023. But yeah, great book. And there's more Bond coming. And better than this one, too. This one is actually one of my least favorite Bond books. It's still insanely good. But compared to the best ones, it's, oh, man. So that's 5 down, 35 to go. All right. Hold on. Okay. All right. I don't want that to tip over. It's swaying. All right. The Defense of the Catholic Priesthood Against Martin Luther by St. John Fisher. This book is a gem. It might be my favorite theological book of the year. That's not written by St. Robert Bellarmine. But this is so good. It's not a defense of clerical celibacy. Yes, it was. It's not a defense of clerical celibacy. For that, I think you go to Stephen Hyde's book. But this, written by John Fisher himself, a great holy saint who gave his life for Catholic England. I'm a bit stuffed up. I apologize. Who gave his life for Catholic England. It's a great defense of the priesthood. When Protestants say, oh, where's the priesthood in the New Testament? Your answer is in here. And he just ruins Martin Luther. It's like the wretched heretic he is. All right. There we go. Next book. Okay. We're going back to the 11th century. Oh, and by the way, at the end of this, I'm going to give some resolutions for the reading next year. 11th century Germany, the Swabian Chronicles. They're German chronicles about the investiture controversy in the 11th century. Believe it or not, a lot of Germans actually opposed Henry IV and what he was doing. This publishing arm, Manchester University Press, the Manchester Medieval Sources series, is amazing if you want medieval primary sources. There's more. I think there's more books from that. Yep, there's more books from that. I read this year, and you will see it when we get there. It's good stuff. Okay, great books. Okay, all right. Got to be careful again. Boy, this is swaying. Okay. All right, here's a book completely not to do with anything. The Boys in the Boat. This was made into a movie. 9 Americans and their epic quest for the gold in the 1936 Berlin Olympics. It's about there's some university kids that are broke, can't pay their tuition, so they try out for the rowing team because you got a job and a free place to live during the Great Depression. So that was to pay their way through school. And the story is they end up winning the national championships, and they end up going to the Berlin Olympics where they win. Amazing story. Amazing story. Yeah, that's a good story. That's a good. I also saw the film. It was made into a film. In fact, a friend told me about the film, and I'm like, I want to read the book first. So we did end up reading the book first. Steady, steady, steady. I mean, if this collapses, this will be the best blooper on YouTube. Certainly on my channel. All right. The autobiography of Saint Robert Bellarmine. Here was a nice one. You know, it's good to learn about the guy who's shredding the Protestants. Unfortunately, this doesn't include Galileo. I was really hoping there'd be some Galileo stuff. Yeah, and Jesse Owens, he actually makes a cameo in the movie. Like, they see him when they're going to walk in, and someone's like, I heard you're the fastest guy in the world. And he says something like, oh, I'm not sure. We'll find out, or something like that. No, it's a great, there's a whole bunch of cameos. People from the American basketball team, because that was the first time basketball was at the Olympics as well. Yeah. So, all right. Yeah, so St. Robert Bellarmine, it's a good biography. It didn't have anything about Galileo. That kind of disappointed me, but in all fairness, it's an autobiography. He probably doesn't think of that as one of the highlights of his life. Put Galileo, that heretic, in his place. Okay. That pile is so much neater than this one. Okay. This is book number... Wow. Okay. This is book number 10. So it's another Bond novel, Moonraker. Moonraker. This one was probably on par with Live and Let Die. A lot of people really like this one. They say it's the best one. I wouldn't say that. The best one is coming up. But I'm reading them in order. And oh man, I'm a bit stuffed. Hold on. Okay. Yeah, so this is pretty good. Read it. It's the third Bond book, if you go by order. All right. All right. What book is this? I can't see because I can only see the cross. Ooh, this is a good one. On the Most Holy Sacrifice of the Mass by Saint Robert Bellarmine. I believe this is part of the controversies. Yep, on the controversy. So it's a Protestant polemic. This book is a bit different. It's a bit harder to read. There's not as much flow in it. Like, it's still fairly simple to read, but not as simple as some of the other stuff that I've showed you, like On the Marks of the Church. And in this one, he replies to the Protestant polemics of John Calvin and Martin Chemnitz, who was a Lutheran scholar, and he shreds them. So there we go. All right, that goes there. What book is this? I can only see the pages. Oh, this one. I like this one. St. John Fisher again. Against Luther's, the defense of the royal assertion against Luther's Babylonian captivity. So that by St. John Fisher. This was a polemic he wrote against Martin Luther. And yeah, there's a lot of good stuff in this one. I would say his priesthood book is better, but this is certainly good too. So read this if you want some good stuff. Hopefully Ryan Grant will translate more of St. John Fisher. And he told me this when I had him on my channel. So that's where I got the idea for that. I'm like, that sounds pretty impressive. Oh, okay. Oh, swaying. This one is this was a primary source of the 13th century. Sicily's rebellion against King Charles. Charles of Anjou was the controller of Sicily. By John of Procida. It's a primary source. Translated by Louis Mendela. It's a primary source of the Sicilian Vespers, the war in Sicily to overthrow Charles of Anjou. And to this day, if you ask Sicilians about Charles of Anjou, they like shudder at that name, because he was the brother of King Louis IX, and he controlled Sicily. And basically, it was a plot that involved powers all over Europe. They had proxies, including the Byzantine emperor. He was in charge too, to start a huge rebellion in Sicily, because he had an interest, because Charles of Anjou was getting ready for a crusade. He was getting troops together against the Byzantine Empire. And so, therefore, the Byzantine emperor was involved in this as well. And people in Spain and elsewhere wanted to see Charles of Anjou lose control of Sicily for their own purposes. So, therefore, they all worked together and successfully overthrew Charles of Anjou. He lost his empire. Great primary source. Great primary source. Okay. All right, that goes there. All right, what do we have here? Oh, this one. Oh, this one is a goodie. It's another Manchester University Press, the Manchester Medieval Sources series. It is by Jacopo de Varagin's Chronicle of the City of Genoa. And he was just, I believe he was a Dominican who wrote a history of Genoa. And he says some interesting things. He says, there were Christians in Genoa from the time of the apostles, because keep in mind, it's not too far from Rome. Certainly if you take a ship. And he says something interesting. He says Genoa was named after the Roman god Janus or Janus. Apparently that's disputed today. It was disputed back in the day. His contemporaries disputed that too. So who knows if it's true, but it's an interesting tidbit. Yeah, so yeah, this is a great book. Learned a lot about an important Italian city. I was on a family vacation in 2006. We drove through Genoa. We stopped there for an ice cream or something. Okay, there we go. What do we have next? I like the fact that it's Diamonds Are Forever, another Bond movie. We're at the 5th one, so this will be number 15. Diamonds Are Forever. Here's the Bond novel. It's on par with Moonraker, I'd say, which is on par with Live and Let Die. The next Bond book is A grade. This is a notch below that, but still good. Working my way through these. I'll finish the Bond books in 2025. They're great. All right, huge book coming out. Huge 650-page book. On the Roman Pontiff by St. Robert Bellarmine. This, I don't normally read books in defense of the papacy. I read primary sources to make my own case, but it's St. Robert Bellarmine. You got to read this. Amazing book. 639 pages, so 640-page book. And it's so good. It just rips all these arguments from the Protestants. It's good for Eastern Orthodox, too, because they use Protestant arguments against the papacy. Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Brilliant. So buy this book and read it. It's probably my favorite book of the year, I'd say. My favorite book, not by Bellarmine, was The Defense of the Catholic Priesthood. Okay, let's continue. All right. Here's another book by St. Robert Bellarmine, yay thick, about 490 pages or something, 470. Defense of the Ecumenical Councils on the church, on councils, on the church militant, on the marks of the church. So this actually has on the marks of the church in it. So I just read through it again. It's yeah, so like we also need to defend why ecumenical councils are authoritative, not to an Eastern Orthodox, but to Protestant. And a thing that's interesting about this book and the last book on the Roman Pontiff is that his research was so good, so thorough. He uh, crossed his T's and dotted his I's, that it's pretty much relevant today. I think he made one or two mistakes in here, but pretty good for 400 years ago. And in that, just brilliant. Read everything from him. Thank you, Ryan Grant. We owe you big. All right. So that goes on here. Now this pile's getting big. I got to be careful about this pile. Oh boy. Oh boy. Okay. All right. All right. Next book. Okay. Paul Lay, Providence Lost, The Rise and Fall of Cromwell's Protectorate. I read this book after I got an interest in the English Civil War. It's amazing how big Catholicism played a role in that war. I had, what's his name, Charles Coulomb on my show, and that got me really interested in this. And this book I had purchased a while back. I had it lying around, and this is a good book about Cromwell's terror state that he ran in England. Anyway, he was a son of a devil, Cromwell. All right, here's an interesting book. All About Love by Bell Hooks. Bell Hooks is a feminist. I lost a bet to a feminist, so I had to read this book. Yep, all right. Let's just leave it at that. I think Bell Hooks was actually Catholic at one point. But, like all feminists, she drifted into New Age. I don't think she's an atheist, but she died a couple years ago. Famous feminist, if you're into feminism. I only read this because I lost a bet. All right, that's done. Quite a bit of it. Let's see if there's any more Bellarmine. I don't know. All right. Here was my number one novel of the year. We're back to novels. So this is book number 20. And that is From Russia with Love. Oh, man. So good. The movie's good, but the book is so much better. It gives like 100-page background of how they're trying to plot the assassination of Bond. And it goes into the background. It's the best Bond novel. It's better than Casino Royale even. Brilliant book. So read Bond, everyone. Okay, all right, that goes. I think this pile is now higher than that one. Okay. The Chronicle of Geoffrey Le Baker, or The Baker. And this is a good primary source for the 100 Years' War, if the war that went from 1337 to 1453, started by Edward III. Now, it's technically 116 years long, but no one calls it the 116 Years' War. We call it the 100 Years' War. Yeah, great primary source for that war. Of course, not the whole war, because but for the first, I'd say, half of the 100 Years' War, great primary source. It's got some pre-100 Years' War stuff too, like King Edward II and what happens to him. But it's got the Battle of Crécy and the Battle of Poitiers, the two big early battles in the 100 Years' War that were essentially the same battle. They ended the same way, with the longbowers, the English longbowers, annihilating the mountain knights of the French knights. Okay, all right, here we go, and let me just. I think I'm half done. I think I was half done at From Russia with Love. So we're on the descent. Okay. Next book. The Sanctity of Louis the Ninth. These are some early chronicles, some early hagiographies of King Louis the Ninth, St. Louis. Great king, holy saint. There's a city in the States named after him, and God bless him. You know, we need more leaders like him. So, yeah, great. If you want to learn about this great saintly crusader king, he wasn't the greatest crusader, but he was a holy man. So, there you go. Here's one I bet you didn't expect. Something completely like me, I like to read history outside. This kind of like The Boys in the Boat often. A biography called of Matahari, Femme Fatale, Love, Lies, and the Unknown Life of Matahari, who was, for those who don't know, she was a dancer who was executed as a double agent in World War I in 1916 or 1917. I can't remember, but she was executed in Paris as a double agent, and this gives her whole life. It also goes into whether she was guilty or not. I mean, if I had to guess, she was not guilty, but it's by no means a closed case. So, yeah, there's an interesting book. I don't know what prompted me to read this book, but Matahari biography, guys, read it. All right. Okay. All right. Next book. Ooh, this one's good. The Carolingian Chronicles. Here's some. They got This includes the Royal Frankish Annals and Nethard's History, which are two sources from the I believe the 9th or the 10th century from that era. Absolutely brilliant. You learn about Charlemagne, King Louis the Pious, who was his successor. Yeah, and a lot of the wars they fought and what goes on with their church affairs too, because um, they were involved in church affairs. So, yeah, no, I love the medieval stuff. If you haven't figured that out, so yeah, Carolingian Chronicles. It has two sources from that era. Okay. All right. That pile's so neat. Okay. Dr. No, another Bond book. My dad actually he read Casino Royale and Dr. No. And yeah, no, there's a great book, Dr. No. I'd say it's my third favorite behind From Russia with Love, and I don't know if it's better than Casino Royale, but Casino Royale and this one are definitely 2 and 3. Great book. I love Dr. No. He's a great character. He's a great villain. It's pretty faithful to the movie, but they changed some stuff around. Like the movie is that was the first movie, so the big test. How faithful were they? And it was they change a bit of stuff. How Dr. No gets killed, and there's like a torture scene that the movie skips over, both for Bond and the girl, Honey Rider. Yeah, great Bond book, either second or third. I'd say third, actually. First, it's From Russia with Love. Then it's Casino Royale. Then it's Dr. No. Those are the top 3, and there's more coming, actually. All right, here we go. All right, thank you, Dr. No. Okay. Now I got the Chronicle of Constantine Manassas. This is written, I think, about 1100. It's a Byzantine Empire chronicle. So yeah, it's not too detailed. I wouldn't recommend it. It's, I mean, unless you're trying to read everything from that era. I don't remember it being like I don't see myself going back to this book a lot, so you might want to skip this one if you're as opposed to John Scalitzis. Read that. Okay, this is a really good book, this one. This is the histories of Launikos Chokakondiles. These are volume 2 books 6 to 10. I read 1 to 5 the year prior. And it's a good book. It's a good book. It tells a lot of the stuff in the last days of the Byzantine Empire. It talks a lot about the Ottomans as well, a lot about Mehmet the Conqueror, and it goes after the fall of the empire even. So I mean, yeah, stuff I like, definitely read it. But of course, read the first one first. They're both equally good, though. Okay. All right. Trying to get this. That pile's the tall one now. This was given as a gift from a friend. Shout out to the friend here. I don't want to say his name for privacy reasons. But it is Blessed Charles of Austria by Charles Coulomb. And I had Charles Coulomb on the channel to talk about this book. This is a great, he's like one of the last devout Christian monarchs of all of Europe, probably the last. He descends from a line that includes Charlemagne in it. And like he fits him into the medieval Christian monarchs of Europe and just tells a story about a great monarch who lived during World War I, who wanted peace. The thing is, we all know how World War I started with the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, right? Well, who became heir after he died? It was Charles of Austria became heir. So that's a little interesting tidbit. Okay. But yeah, that's a good book. Read that book for sure. Okay, the passed on letters. There's a collection of letters that go from like basically in a bunch of letters in the it's not all the passed on letters, it's only a collection of them. I think there's like 1,000 of them or something, and this is only probably like 100 or something. And I thought it would be a good source for the 100 Years' War because the books were found in a huge house in the basement, and they were published as historical sources, but they don't tell you a whole lot. It's just what's going on with the family. I thought it would tell me more about contemporary politics, but they don't talk about those too much. A bit, but not a whole lot. I was a bit disappointed in how little I got out of this. Skip this book unless you're a huge nerd like me. But we're coming up to a really good source. A really good source we're coming up to. I'm not there quite yet, but we will be there soon. But in the meantime, we're back to the novel again. Goldfinger. This is a good one. This is a good Bond novel. I'd say fourth behind Dr. No. Dr. No is third. This book is fourth. Just great novel. Oh man. Oh, just brilliant. I'm glad I read this book. I'm really glad. Bond is. I'm gonna finish all the Bond novels in 2025, and the 2 collections of short stories. There are 14 books, 12 novels, 2 collections of short stories. I've read the 7 novels for half the book, so I got 2 collections of short stories and 5 of the novels left. Okay. All right, that goes up here. Ooh, that's a tall. Here is one of the best books I read all year. This is a classic, and everyone has heard of this book, but few people have actually read this book. The Travels of Marco Polo. Amazing book. Amazing book. You learn so much about Asia. Think if you're someone in Europe in the early 1300s, all you'll know about Asia is what you find in this book. And it talks about a lot of interesting things. It's amazing how many Christians there were in the East. They were all wiped out by Tamerlane, but yeah. So this book, one of the best books I read all year, top 5. It's not number 1, but it's in the top 5, and it's a classic. You can pick it up. It's published by Penguin. It's dirt cheap. Amazing book. Okay, all right. All right, there. Now, this one has nothing to do with the content of my channel. I got this book when I was in New Brunswick. I was there for some work on the other side of the country from where I live. And so I just bought some things on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, on Palestine, Noam Chomsky and Ilan Pappé. I've read stuff by both of them. And they are they both contribute to this volume. It's a great book. If you want some good information, it's something I study quite a bit, believe it or not, although I don't talk about it on my channel. All right, so yeah, if you're interested in that conflict, that's a good book. It's cheap as well. Whoa, that is getting steep. Okay, let's hope that holds off. We're on the home stretch. The Pope's Greatest Adversary, Girolamo Savonarola, by Samantha Morris. This is a biography, a modern biography of Girolamo Savonarola. It tells you about his life, how he opposed the Pope, and now I know what you're saying. Hey, Alan, why aren't you reading the primary sources on Savonarola's life? Why are you reading a modern book? I'd answer that. You mean these primary sources? These are the writings, or some of the writings of Savonarola, a lot of his private letters, his apologetic writings, his letters to yeah, I wouldn't trust Shapiro for a second on pretty much anything. That's a bit unfair, but certainly on stuff involving Israel. So no, his letters to the Pope, and he fully respected the office of Pope. He was. I learned a lot more respect for him after reading this. A good supplement to that book I just showed you. Whoa, boy. Whoa. 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 Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. That's good. All right. Next book is a novel, not a Bond book. Not a Bond book. Wool by Hugh Howey, the first book in the Silo series. If you have an Apple TV Plus account, there's a TV show called Silo. I believe the first two what's it called? The first two seasons are contained in this one book. It's a trilogy, and I read the first book. I still got books 2 and 3 over there. I plan on reading them, but yeah, no, an interesting book. If you like books like Hunger Games or Divergent or things like that, yeah, that's a fun read. Okay, all right. Next book. Attonian Germany, the Chronicon of Thietmar of Merseburg. This book is a chronicle about 9th and 10th century Germany, about the Attonians, the rule of Otto I, Otto II, Otto III, the Holy Roman Emperors. It's pretty dry, I'm not going to lie. I was talking to my mom on the phone, and she asked, Alan, what are you reading now? And I'm like, well, and a book about Attonian Germany, the reigns of Otto, the first, second, and third. And she kind of laughed. She's like, that sounds incredibly boring. And I'm like, you know what? It is pretty boring, but you need to know this stuff if you study medieval history. Okay. We're getting to the end here. After this one, it's only 4 more books. Okay. This next book I read because I read all the books that this apostate writes. He's very well known in Canada. You might recognize him in the States. He's on X. He's an apostate from the Catholic faith, became an Anglican, but not like a true believer Anglican, a rank liberal, because he didn't like Catholic teaching on homosexuality. But he cracked the code, which shows that the Bible affirms it all along, and it's pure coal. Michael Corin, Heaping Coals, from media firebrand to Anglican priest. This man is truly a sad individual. It's very sad. Skip this book unless you do what I do. Like, I try to refute this stuff. Yeah, it's Heaping Coals. This book is coal. Okay. All right. Here is a book, Full Spectrum Dominance. This is about geopolitics, Totalitarian Democracy in the New World Order by F. William Engdahl. I got this book because I heard about it from all people from Jay Dyer. Jay Dyer, his theology is, I don't care much for his theology, but in terms of when he talks about geopolitics, he says some interesting things. And there's some interesting things in here. A lot about what NATO is trying to do and all this stuff. So yeah, it's a pretty good book. It's a pretty good book. Very easy read. If you want to get into this stuff, this is a great place to start. But yeah, no, great book. All right, 2 more. That is tall. Okay. Gerald of Wales, The History and Topography of Ireland. So this was a guy from Wales who went in the 12th century to Ireland and basically wrote about everything he saw there. And it's a short read. It's not much longer than 100 pages, but it's medieval, so I like it. Now, that's book 39. The next book is number 40. It's going to be a novel, right? Actually, it's not a novel. I broke my pattern of every 5th book a novel for the end of the year. I break it occasionally, but I usually try to stay faithful to it. The History of the Archbishops of Hamburg / Bremen. So basically, it talks about the church in the north of Germany in the 10th, 11th century, and how they expand the church into Scandinavia. A bit under the weather. Yeah, how they expand the church into Scandinavia, and who are the big names who went to evangelize Sweden and those countries. Written by Adam of Bremen, who was from the 11th century, Catholic monk or priest or a member of the clergy, either way. Columbia University Press. It's an interesting book. It's a fun read too. A lot more exciting than the Etonian Germany one. But yeah, and I actually have another book of this collection published by Columbia that I'm going to be printing, that I'm going to be reading soon. Whoa. Okay. All right. There is my books. That's my book collection. That's every book that I read in 2024. All 40 books. I don't know how many pages that is, but that's... Well, that's a lot of books. A lot of books. And yeah, I am so let me know what you think. Write down your favorite books of this year. And if you haven't read the James Bond novels, read them. They are amazing. And what else? Yeah. If you read any of these books, just comment on them down below. And they're great books, especially St. Robert Bellarmine, especially James Bond. And yeah, so anyway, that's all. Hope. Oh, and my New Year's resolution. I've got personal New Year's resolutions, but I have one for reading, and that is, you'll notice in all of that stuff, there are no church fathers. I like the medieval period. I'm a medieval guy. Amazing. Read everything he writes. Read everything he writes. I got the Holocaust narrative there. I got the Jewish Revolutionary Spirit. I've read both of those. I got his biography of John Cardinal Kroll somewhere around here. I'm going to read that one soon. He has a new book coming out. It's about American identity, and I'm Canadian. I'm still going to buy it. All right. Okay, so yeah, there you go. There's everything I read this year. I'm a medievalist. I don't read church fathers, but my resolution this year for reading is to read 3 books by church fathers. I read about 40 books a year. I aim for 50, but I rarely hit 50. I'm normally about 40. And so I'm going to read some church fathers this year, but it's mostly going to be from that same era that I do read. All right. That is all, folks. Thanks for tuning in. And God bless, and you have a good day.